From the University of Florida's College of Journalism and Communications, you're watching WUFT News.
To count one of the indictment, murder in the first degree of victim Luke Hoyer, how do you wish to plead?
Guilty.
To count two of the indictment, murder in the first degree of Martin Duque Anquiano, how do you wish to plead?
Guilty.
3 years after the mass shooting at Stoneman Douglas High School, the man who pulled the trigger, Nicholas Cruz, pleads guilty to all counts. I'm Sophia Mingodi.
And I'm Alexis Greaves. Developments in that case, a change of plea without a deal on the death penalty, is our top story today.
Family members of victims packed the courtroom to watch today's hearing, many breaking down in tears as the victims' names were read. The case will now move to the penalty phase, where a 12-member jury will determine whether Cruz is sentenced to death or life in prison without parole. After pleading guilty, he offered a tearful apology to the families of the victims.
I am very sorry for what I did, and I have to live with it every day. And that if I were to get a second chance, I will do everything in my power to try to help others. And I am doing this for you, and I do not care if you do not believe me. And I love you, and I know you don't believe me.
Some parents were not so empathetic to his words.
I don't want to hear that he's sorry or that he wants to do good. As my son said, he should have thought of that February 13th.
Today, Cruz pled guilty to 17 counts of murder and 17 counts of attempted murder. Defense attorneys hope the guilty pleas will convince jurors that Cruz has taken responsibility and deserves a life sentence.
The search for Brian Laundrie leads back to Florida's Carlton Reserve and the discovery of human remains. NBC News is reporting the discovery of partial human remains in an area previously underwater. There's no confirmation yet, but a family attorney says a backpack that may be Laundrie's was found nearby. His parents met with the FBI this morning to lead them to specific trails their son might have used. In international news, hundreds of Haitians took the streets to call for the liberation of the 17 kidnapped members of a U.S.-based missionary group. Hundreds of people walked through the streets of Titayen. Some carried signs that read "Free the Americans" and "No to Kidnapping." Local officials say the gang responsible is demanding $17 million for the 17 hostages. Most of the hostages are American, one is Canadian, and there are 5 children in the group, including 1 baby. Haitian gangs have grown more brazen as the country tries to recover from the assassination of the president and this year's earthquake.
In local news, construction is underway on the new University of Florida Student Healthcare Center. The $26 million building will be the first at UF to use the WELL building standard. That standard promotes improved health through the design of operational practices and policies. The 46,000 square foot facility will also have an infectious disease unit, which is believed to be a national first for college infirmaries.
Virtual reality is being used at a local assisted living facility. WUFT's Gabriela Mercurio shows us one resident's experience.
Kay Coons used to do a lot of traveling with her husband. The last trip they took together was over 5 years ago. But thanks to new technology at Oak Hammock at the University of Florida, she's able to reminisce on old adventures and go on new ones.
Just like Mrs. Coons, I have something on my bucket list: to get outside more when the weather is nice.
Hopefully it can stay like that a little bit more. Let's turn to Zoe Robinson for the weather forecast.
From the University of Florida's College of Journalism and Communications, you're watching WUFT News.
This is a WFT News Update. I'm Alexis Greaves.
And I'm Elizabeth Byro. Thanks for joining us. A Citrus High School football player collapsed during practice on Tuesday evening and later died. The player was taken to Citrus Memorial Hospital, where he passed away, according to a statement posted on Twitter by the school's principal, Laura Mason. She expressed how deeply saddened they were by the loss and said the school will be offering counseling and support to students and staff. The student's name and cause of death were not immediately released.
Almost a month after discovering his body in a river, authorities in Illinois were able to identify the remains of graduate student Jelani Day. His mother has been critical of the way authorities handled her son's missing persons case. After the wave of interest sparked by the case of Gabby Petito, she's been pleading for help. People are calling out the disparities in minority missing persons cases after the Petito disappearance. Jelani Day was 25 and studying in grad school to become a speech pathologist.
As flu season approaches, it can be difficult to tell what's causing your symptoms. Cold or allergy, flu, or COVID. WUFT's Gabriela Mercurio spoke with a nurse practitioner about ways to stay healthy.
Allergies, a cold, the flu, or COVID-19. When you wake up with a sore throat, it can be hard to tell the difference.
The Alachua County COVID-19 emergency order is set to expire at the end of the month. The Alachua County Commission met to discuss the future of the COVID-19 emergency order. The commission decided to allow it to expire. The state permitted counties to implement an emergency mask mandate, but it cannot extend past 6 weeks. The local mandate will expire, but masks could still be required in some places.
Business can continue to require masking. Government buildings can continue to require masking, but there's no general mandate.
The Alachua County Commission also decided to continue a $25 gift card incentive for those who get vaccinated for COVID-19.
Newberry High School is the school disrupted by bomb threats, 4 within the past week. Right now, there are no suspects. Previous bomb threats were called into Oakview Middle School and Buchholz High School. 2 weeks ago, deputies arrested a Buchholz student accused of making some of those false bomb threats.
I certainly hope it is not a trend. It is this is a major deal. This is against the law. It's against the student code of conduct.
The FBI is also investigating the series of threats.
Planned Parenthood is taking a stand against the abortion bill proposed by a Florida representative last week. The bill would ban abortions just 6 weeks after pregnancy. It parallels a Texas law in that activists could sue those accused of helping with the late abortion, with the possibility of getting $10,000 if they win the case. Florida Planned Parenthood vows to fight the bill.
We're going to fight to make sure that it doesn't pass. We're really working hard on that. You know, people are very upset about this. There's a whole generation of young people that don't know what it's like to not have a right to their bodily autonomy, right? To have their reproductive rights taken away.
Supporters of tighter abortion restrictions are not going to remain silent either. Across the street at Bread and Roses Women's Health Center, protesters gathered to urge women to explore alternative options.
Moving to something non-controversial, people are celebrating National Coffee Day in Gainesville. WUFT's Megan Porterfield serves us a cup.
Daily, Americans drink more than 400 million cups of coffee.
From the University of Florida's College of Journalism and Communications, you're watching WUFT News.
Breaking news, Bill Cosby now out of prison after the Pennsylvania Supreme Court overturned his conviction. Here you see Cosby arriving home this afternoon. This is a WUFT News update. I'm Erica Shabovsky. Another sudden surprise in the Bill Cosby saga as the Pennsylvania Supreme Court sets him free. In 2018, Cosby was convicted of drugging and molesting Temple University employee Andrea Constand. That incident dated back to 2004. By 2018, dozens of women came forward with similar stories. In today's ruling, Pennsylvania's highest court was troubled by other accusers testifying. The judge allowed 1 in the first trial and then allowed 5 during the retrial. The ruling says the district attorney was also bound by his predecessor's agreement not to criminally charge Cosby if he gave a deposition in Constand's civil case. For more on Cosby, look to WUFT.org and the PBS NewsHour. In other news, tens of thousands of homeless people who were housed in hotels nationwide during the pandemic are looking at life on the streets once again. A combination of factors are contributing to those people being evicted from hotel and motel rooms. In some cases, hotels want the rooms back for tourists as people begin to travel again. Some cities or states stopped funding the homeless programs that were intended to try to stop the spread of COVID-19. The money came from a variety of sources, including the Federal Emergency Management Agency. FEMA extended its funding through September, but the Associated Press reports the approval process is so difficult that it deters many cities and states from taking advantage of it. Governor Ron DeSantis takes action on nearly 100 bills, vetoing 4, including one that would have changed Florida's car insurance program. Florida's no-fault system for crashes requires all drivers to carry personal injury protection or PIP insurance. In his veto message, DeSantis said PIP is flawed, but the proposed change may have unintended consequences that would be negative. One bill the governor signed will overrule Key West voters. During the pandemic, local limits were passed on the size of cruise ships and the number of passengers debarking. The new law generally protects all port commerce from local votes.
In local news, a fire broke out early this morning at Piccadilly Apartments in Gainesville. Gainesville Fire Chief Joseph Hillhouse says firefighters were dispatched to the scene at 2:35 a.m. Hillhouse says there were 30 firefighters involved in the effort to put out the fire that affected 16 apartments. 8 apartments caught fire while another 8 were damaged by smoke. Hillhouse says the fire was electrical in nature, but he isn't exactly sure what started it. He advises that people pay attention to the recommendations made by electrical companies when purchasing cords and cables, like keeping them a certain distance away from the wall and other electrical appliances. No one was injured in the fire, but one person was transported to the hospital due to smoke inhalation. As much of the country continues to deal with a grappling heat wave, experts are warning that it's important to know the signs of heat exhaustion, which can turn to heat stroke. Experts at Baylor College of Medicine say some of the symptoms of heat exhaustion include sweating, rapid heart rate, lightheadedness, headache, and muscle cramps. You should also not ignore symptoms like nausea, vomiting, or diarrhea because they can make it difficult to recover from heat exhaustion.